Hiya! Welcome to this, my 40th episode of VideoFuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Aman, and in this installment, titled Familiar Arguments, an episode of Boston Legal grabbed my attention. I closed out the first season story arc in the CBS rebroadcast of Dexter, and oh my wow, did NBC put out an amazing winter finale of The Good Place. Also, I've got spoiler-free comments on the Spider-Verse and Mary Poppins Returns, did she ever, along with the show so far in By the Numbers. Welcome to the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.
In what's been going on with me, Ralph and I pursued what is becoming a Christmas tradition for us, one I absolutely love. First, he made us some delicious fry bread, and then we drove around looking at everyone else's Christmas lights. Some people really do it up, others not so much. I mentioned last time this is the first year we've really made with the Christmas lights, so I felt I could be a little judgy. Not really, but I did appreciate when people had clearly put some thought into their displays. Weekend before last, Ralph took me to a Gabriel Iglesias concert at Four Bears Casino up north of here. Fluffy puts on a phenomenal show. We had some nasty weather blow up specifically that night, so it was 2.5 hours of white knuckling, at times icy and blustery conditions. But once we got there, that casino is beautiful. Fluffy had a couple opening acts. They were fun, but the main event was the man himself. Ralph and I had caught his act once before at Bismarck Event Center a couple of years ago. What I'll say is he has themes he references, certainly, but no, I didn't notice any actual material overlap. Completely fresh material for over an hour's worth of performance, and what I'll say is he has an expression of joy, a pure joy, and probably one of the sweetest guys in the world. Catch his act. He's fun, he is funny, he is incapable of disappointing, and thank you, Ralph. That was a fantastic Christmas gift. Oh, before I get to my Friday night feature, I wanted to highlight a thing I did. I put together a second installment of VideoFuzzy, the video. While I was looking for something else, I found these awesome photos from 2007 with the clearest images so far of my tape collection. Now, I was transferring tapes to disc while I was recording and re-recording VHS tapes between '07 and '12, so there's never been a count, nor would it be possible to say for sure exactly how many tapes I had then or at any time between then and now, but the best estimate I can put together from these photos is probably some 500 tapes, which is... well, that's a lot of tapes. Compiling all of that, along with my current viewing, into 2 shelves of 15 DVD binders altogether, well, my media collection is decidedly more portable. Beyond that, they've got some good music going at the City Brew tonight, including The Middle by Bosco Rogers. I've mostly gotten over a cold here, hope that's not too disruptive, and let's get into it.
Friday night feature.
Going through this set of discs, one episode really stood out in terms of timelessness, a 4th season episode of Boston Legal called Indecent Proposals I found in my classic collection on disc 576, in which Candace Bergen as Crane Poole and Schmidt partner Shirley Schmidt wants to sue the Democratic Party because her nephew, Mitchie, by the primary vote in his district in Massachusetts, a pledged delegate for Hillary Clinton, planned to cast his vote at the convention for... Barack Obama. This episode aired April 30th of 2008, so at the time a whole lot of history had not yet happened, but poll numbers were leaning Obama, and there was discussion of poaching delegates and some public discussion heading into the convention about the obligations of delegates, pledged delegates, and superdelegates to vote as per them what sent them. Shirley approaches James Spader as Alan Shore about taking the Democratic Party to court in Boston, Massachusetts to complain that Barack Obama is stealing the election from Hillary Clinton. Specifically, Mitchie and however many others might not vote as their primary directs them, and Shirley suggests suing him. This vote could come down to a handful of delegates, she says, poached delegates, including that of her nephew. Sue. Cut to Mitchie, a smarmy little so-and-so who smarmily asserts that delegates are not obligated to represent the plurality lead of their constituents, in this case the 42% Clinton secured in his district. It's funny how a plurality can morph into an entirety. Must be that Clinton math, he says. Alan points out that a majority of Massachusetts Democrats did vote for Clinton, so is he not duty-bound to vote for her? Mitchie asserts that he is not so much duty-bound as duty-urged. Shirley argues that even pledged delegates are not obligated to vote the way their congressional districts do. According to Wikipedia, Massachusetts Democrats split their delegates 55 for Hillary Clinton and 38 for Barack Obama. Whether any of them were actually Mitchie, Allen could only think of two options to bar him from casting his vote as he'd like: stuff him in a barrel and send him out to sea, or sue the Democratic Party. So, once in court, Allen is seeking a court order mandate that pledged delegates cast their ballots for their pledged candidates, certainly on the first ballot. Go-to jurist Henry Gibson, loved him in Laugh-In, as the Honorable Judge Clark Brown asks, "You want me to tell the Democrats how to run their own party?" To which Allen quips, "Well, somebody's got to." Joe Morton, as defense counsel Steve Dupre, asserts the Democratic Party is a private organization and can operate by whatever rules it sees fit. Allen says it violates one man, one vote. He points out Mitchie's vote is worth 13,000 times that of his own or the judge. If primaries don't count, he begins, to which Mitchie interjects, "They count, they're just not binding, snotty butt." They recess, and, alone in conference, Shirley takes issue with Allen's argument that Hillary Clinton is an establishment, don't rock the vote, don't take scary risks outcome. She claims Allen is politicizing the case. Just because she's a supporter of Hillary doesn't mean she's opposed to Obama, just that that's not how Massachusetts is leaning, and their delegates should reflect that. Allen points out that if anyone will benefit from poaching delegates, it will be Clinton. He said in 20 years the presidency has only been held by Bushes or Clintons. He posits that Shirley wants Hillary to win, and if Hillary is behind in the polls, her only chance is poaching delegates from Obama. Shirley spits back that Allen is using the forum to stump for Obama. He says she only wants to promote Hillary. "I'm promoting the process," she says, to which Allen retorts, "A process that only spits out Clintons or Bushes." This back and forth escalates into a classic Act 3 shouting match, Allen and Shirley talking over each other, and generally engineered for the characters to outline their major points and build dramatic tension. They have experience.
Oh,
the
aren't
only
you
reason
sick
your
of
buddy is
experience?
senator is because
Oh,
the incumbent
please, she was the first lady. Oh, you want to play the sex scandal card? Whatever the script calls for. Reverend Right, Reverend Right, except for when she's finding her own voice, which is crybaby. Surely I'm telling you, if she gets the nomination, I'm going to vote for a dead guy from Arizona. On top of that, she looks like a man.
The strength of these exchanges is usually more on the actors than the writers, but I thought it would be interesting to isolate both sides of the conversation and listen to them. Take it away, Team Shirley. "They have experience. The only reason your buddy is senator is because the incumbent was caught in a sex scandal. She was not just a first lady. She's been a senator, a committed lawyer, so much more than just, yes, we can," and applauds for himself when he's introduced, not to mention he looks like a girl. Meanwhile, Allen is countering, "Oh, aren't you sick of experience? Oh, please, she was the first lady. Oh, you want to play the sex scandal card? Whatever the script calls for, repeating Reverend Right, except for when she's finding her own voice, which is crybaby. Surely, I'm telling you, if she gets the nomination, I'm going to vote for a dead guy from Arizona. On top of that, she looks like a man." They are shocked into a realization that they have sunk to the level of presidential candidates. They hug with Shirley's admonition, "Don't try anything." Back in the courtroom, Steve Dupre, the counsel for the Democrats, cross-examines Mitchie on the stand, pointing out while he's a pledged delegate for Hillary Clinton, he plans to vote for Obama. Dupre reminds him that his own constituency thinks that what he is doing is wrong. Mitchie responds that Dick Cheney, confronted with poll numbers calling for troop withdrawal, says, "So?" Allen points out that this 22-year-old committee man, appointed based on his hours of volunteer work, has hobbed and denobbed with both Obama and Clinton, adding, "Isn't democracy swell?" Mitchie spouts a lot of canned Democratic catchphrases, and the scene culminates in a video of the DNC chair Howard Dean's shouty, "Yeah!" speech. Not his finest moment. Dupre makes his own worst case. The DNC is a private organization. It can operate by any rules it wants. It vets candidates through checks and balances. What would happen, he asked, if some celebrity or comedian captured the public's attention and ran? Delegates, as a matter of conscience, have to be allowed to say, "Whoa." Essentially, he said, the rules we have in place are to effect a choice from the people to be affirmed or not by the delegates and the superdelegates, and it is not automatic. Dupre points out that if something happened to Senator McCain, under their rules, the Republicans would be obligated to shift their nomination to Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee as the next highest vote getter. By contrast, Democratic delegates are free to vote for who they feel would be the best candidate. Additionally, Dupree asserts that the American constitutional republic has never operated as one man, one vote. He pointed out discrepancies in the relative constituency of one senator from California representing 18 million people versus one senator from Wyoming representing some 273,000 people. Allen lays bare the fact that both parties are in bed with big corporations and big oil and big pharma and big everything, so the only candidates Americans are allowed to choose from are basically vetted, groomed, presented, and in every real way obligated to these corporate interests. Look who the parties are giving us this time, he said. The presidency will come down to a choice between a grumpy old man who wants to stay at war for 100 years and whoever the Democrats pick, which could come down to Mitchie. Shore's final thought, maybe it's time to take a break from Iraq and start trying to spread a little democracy at home. Well, yeah. In the B story for this piece, William Shatner's partner Denny Crane was pursuing the lovely Southern Belle rancher Sonny Fields, who was seeking an injunction on cloned beef. This subplot allowed showrunner David E. Kelley to talk about icky cloned beef and GMO regulations with the charming comic deflection of, as one example, Ms. Fields asserting her belief that procreation should happen the old-fashioned way, and Denny's unreconstructed response, when do we get started? The relationship progresses rapidly enough per Denny Crane's naked charisma. They sleep together, they go riding together, they talk about the relative merits of cloning, and Ms. Fields' belief that if this were a better option, she'd be all for it, but in her gut she believes it is not. I was intrigued to encounter not only Gallivant's Timothy Amundsen as defense counsel, but, oh wow, Cornell Womack, the guy who played... Okay, easiest way to get there. In Rescue Me, Franco, that's Daniel Sunjata as Franco, was dating a beautiful woman who was caring for her special needs brother, Richard, and this guy, Cornell Womack, played Richard. He appeared in Boston Legal as FDA spokesperson Dr. Daryl Grant, testifying that cloned beef is not only safe, it's actually safer than naturally derived livestock, which that argument is tough to make. Most of our improvements in breeds have advanced through selective breeding and reinforcing trait preferences, but this isn't my argument to make. Rather, I'll leave it to John Larroquette, who, oh wow, when it was the 1980s and he was playing a smarmy oversexed prosecutor on Night Court, never got to rain down with fiery vengeance in quite the manner as Carl Sack destroyed hapless punching bag Dr. Grant. Sack hammering him on a long list of dangerous drugs the FDA had approved, polls citing public skepticism of their work at 70%, and citing interviews with former FDA administrators who asserted the department was riven with errors and fallacious missteps. As for resolutions, the show couldn't close quite as stridently forthright as perhaps Kelley would have preferred, but as this show celebrates, our world is not one of blacks and whites, but the million shades of gray between them. In his verdict, Judge Brown pointed out that American politics is like a fast food restaurant, advertising you can order anything you like, but the menu is fixed. The only alternative is to vote for Republicans, he said, and people wonder how we ended up with Bush. Motion denied, he said. Everybody loses. Even worse, the judge in the B story was clearly insane. He found and gavelled for both the plaintiff and the defense, and there was never a clear resolution on whether cloned beef was enjoined or not. As for Denny's relationship, Sonny invited him to join her in moving to Montana. Denny did not want to move to Montana and leave his best friend Alan behind. The sentence that stood out to me in this episode was where Dupree noted that the delegates need to be allowed to evaluate the relative merits and electability and leadership qualities in the candidates stepping forward for the presidency. There's been changes to the rules since the Democratic nomination was another potential toss-up between Clinton and Sanders this past time, and then Dupree's comment, what if some actor or celebrity grabbed everyone's attention and swayed the nomination? His argument, perhaps one worthy of more discussion, is if there's some kind of groundswell populist support for an unworthy, unmerited presidency, cooler heads be empowered to prevail. It's easy to look at this sentiment as being fairly prescient from the perspective of 2016 and 2018, but in reality the system is driven by conflict and an environment of winner-take-all, or as Simon and Garfunkel put it in Mrs. Robinson, come election time, laugh about it, shout about it. When you have to choose, either way you look at it, you lose. It's just not possible for 2 people to be president, or for 5 people, yet partisans on all sides will argue that their candidate should be the leader, contest the results, demand a recount. Social media doesn't help. Everyone I know was voting for A, so if A doesn't win, the fix was in. And as voices get louder, the stakes seem more and more dire should my side lose or your side win. I'll just reference a meme I've seen circulating of late that strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is, well, actually starting to look like a reasonably cogent alternative basis for a system of government.
Diving into the classic collection.
Whoa, sorry, that one got more detailed than I usually get with these. I knew I wanted to include that back and forth with Alan and Shirley, so I was watching with my notes open and kept more notes than I usually do with these. Elsewhere in my classic VHS to DVD collection, I have several interesting finds, including a Simpsons episode featuring Mark Hamill performing Terrible Dinner Theater, where the maitre d' is that yes guy, actually introduces him, the 10th season episode Mayor to the Mob, and oh wow, I'm going to misremember it. One of the podcasts I listened to a while back talked about the character as a tribute to hilarious character actor Frank Nelson, who appeared on Jack Benny and I Love Lucy and The Addams Family and other shows with this trademark yes affectation. Yes! Homer asks why he talks like that, to which he replies, I've had a stroke. Voiced, perhaps not surprisingly, by Dan Castellaneta. You can hear him in Homer's voice pretty easily. He goes on to appear in 15 other episodes, as well as the Simpsons movie and the Simpsons Tapped Out video game. And that's all from the Simpsons wiki. Oh, and after that scrap I mentioned recently, I encountered a full-length episode of Samantha Who, in which Christina Applegate, as title character Samantha Newley, got an invitation to a gallery show from her ex, Todd, who, as it turns out, still has a lot of feelings for her, based on a sensuous photograph of her midsection he took that he can't bear to part with, much to his current girlfriend's chagrin. Samantha elects to attend the show with random handsome guy she's encountered, Jerry O'Connell, as Craig, who she flashes back to while at the show in horror is the guy who tried to snatch her purse in a mugging incident prior to her hit-and-run-induced amnesia. And then she's embarrassed that her date is a criminal, while her dad is trying to keep anyone from seeing his daughter's naked midriff, and Todd is trying to keep his girlfriend from finding out that is, in fact, what that picture is. It's all some high-quality, high-flying, situationally comic fun. Not to mention, Melissa McCarthy as Sam's hapless friend Dina was given the wrong address for the event and encountered none other than Jim freaking Rash from Community as a goofy performance artist trapped in an actual glass box. So not the exhibit she was planning to see. I encountered an interesting episode of MI5 where a washed-up rock star and new father was targeted by terrorist kidnappers and his wife's attempt to leverage the incident to jumpstart the aging rocker's career. The MI5 team were pulled in to coordinate the handoff and grab the terrorists, realizing only too late the wife was manipulating their information and coordinating directly with the kidnappers as some twisted publicity stunt. It got very cynical by the end, not least of which, when the story broke, truth be known, at this point largely unsympathetic couple were reported to have died as part of a murder-suicide pact in the wake of their child's death. The unsavory details of the case largely kept hidden away from the public. I also caught the first season finale of the CBS rebroadcast of Showtime's Dexter, where Michael C. Hall, as the meticulous, intuitive blood spatter analysis and serial killer of serial killers Dexter Morgan, stages the body of his sister's fiancé, the ice truck killer, as a suicide when he is struck by the realization that the ice truck killer was once his brother, Biney. He had trouble saying Brian. Biney has prepared his sister the way Dexter usually arranges his prey and asks if he wants to help him murder her. The rage and sickness of this very thought overwhelms Dexter, who manages to free her and murder Biney and make it look like a suicide, all the while keeping his job and keeping suspicious, confrontational colleagues from finding out the truth. The greatest threat to his cover, in fact, is Julie Benz as Dexter's girlfriend, Rita. Her ex, Mark Pellegrino as Paul Bennett, told her the night he was found passed out at the crime scene arranged by Dexter, he lost his shoe when Dexter dragged him away from her house. Look for a shoe inside, outside. He's not sure where it happened, but ask Dexter about it. Along with some conflicting forensic evidence, Paul's Narcotics Anonymous sponsor approaches her with post-Paul's admission to the prison hospital. In the closing frames of the episode, Rita does find the shoe along the garden wall. I'm sure this got the second season off to a fun start, but I'll likely never know, since CBS apparently did not feel like editing this Showtime production any further for rebroadcast. My friend Jesse, who has watched the whole series, because of course he has, said it was probably more the swears than the gore. According to a fan-driven video compilation, in 96 episodes over 8 seasons, just his sister, Jennifer Carpenter as Deborah Morgan, deployed the F-bomb some 996 times. Nearly 1,000 times, and I'm sure Standards and Practices rode the editors pretty hard at keeping even just specifically that word, not to mention F-bombs from the other characters and all the other language, and for sure the worst of the gore off the Tiffany network. Dexter definitely fits CBS's all-crime, all-the-time model for primetime drama. They just walk a little prouder with it. Finally, one fun find that wandered blithely into view, the Coming to Grips episode of Reaper. I could not believe my eyes when this one came up. Cougar Town's Ian Gomez, as fugitive from hell, escaped soul Jack King, was the rotter who authored every deposit at the sperm bank he ran, and once again on the loose, was up to his same dirty tricks. When Sam and his friends Sock and Ben go after him with a scythe, his girlfriend Andy happens to see them harvesting this wayward wanker, and she confronts Sam about what she saw. Awkward. Fun to reconnect with this hilariously talented actor in some of his earlier work and see what he got up to before being elected the mayor of Gulf Haven.
Current collection.
In my direct-to-DVD recordings, damn you, Sci-Fi! I swear, it's like they knew. They knew just how busy I was going to be specifically around the beginning of this month, and ahead of the 4th season premiere of The Magicians coming up here in January, they reran all of Season 1. I've got all of 2, I've got all of 3. Season 1 has proven to be so elusive. For years, I assumed they were embarrassed by it. It was bad. There was some problem with it. They didn't want to re-air it ever. Bury it in the ground. Pretend it didn't. No, what they were waiting for was me to turn my back for a second, get a little complacent, not check the grid listing so fastidiously for a little bit, and then bam! We'll run all Season 1 episodes in a marathon. God damn it, Sci-Fi! Yes, there's a setting I could auto-record all episodes if I cared that much, and I wanted to just completely flood my DVR with all sorts of episodes I'd already seen, but I was clearing out my DVR series recordings. I didn't know they were even coming back for a 4th season, so I was just going to get the disc set sometime, when one day I took a minute to look again, and they're already on episode 8! Jennifer Carpenter! I quick set the recorder to grab them and added episodes 8 through 10 to my collection. I already had episodes 11 through 13. This is a strange way to build my knowledge of what happened in Season 1, but I'm keeping my eyes open and hope to add the first 7 episodes if they ever decide to air them again. BoJack Horseman definitely explores dark realms with depression, substance abuse, abandonment issues hinted at unmistakably through the crappy writing of the sitcom he worked on and the bleak aftermath shattered landscape fame left in its wake. I haven't cataloged it yet, but Comedy Central aired the Christmas episode where Todd bugs BoJack about Christmas cheer and gets him to grudgingly join him in re-watching the Sabrina's Christmas Wish episode from the 1st season of Horsin' Around, chock full of cheesy holiday schlock centered on the 3 orphans' first Christmas together with BoJack, and Sabrina learning about Santa Claus and then wishing as her special Christmas wish to have her parents back. After a few ridiculous sitcom tropes, the episode culminates in an existential crisis for the little girl that more or less equates God and fate and Santa Claus pretty well interchangeably in the death of her parents, and closes on the oh wow, how did this get through Horsin' Around Standards and Practices, but BoJack saying maybe if her parents had to die in order for him to have the orphans in his life, he's kind of glad they're dead, and Sabrina smiles and agrees with that completely messed up conclusion. Jennifer Carpenter wrote this plop. Like I said, it's pretty damn dark, but Will Arnett seems to know what he's doing, so yeah, I'm strapped in and hanging on. He gets it's supposed to be that dark, right? Yeah, I know, it's not the sitcom. I get what they're doing. Anyway, back to cataloged material. On ABC, A Million Little Things gave us a flashback of Gary's battle with male breast cancer, now in remission, and everything his since suicide-deceased friend John had done to help him through that tough time. Part of the guilt he feels at maybe he didn't see the signs. He could have helped John. Maybe he's angry that John is gone and cannot be okay with Maggie not fighting for her life. In the meantime, Maggie has changed her mind about not fighting the cancer. She didn't want to tell anyone until she had a good prognosis, but then Gary sat with her through the chemo. They sort of cancer bullied a pair of extras who cut in line at the Christmas tree lot, like, pretty much on Christmas Eve, so how busy would it have been, really? Oh, you have a sniffle? We've both got breast cancer, and we're not cutting in line. Well, yeah, kind of you are. I'm sure everyone will get served. For Christ's sakes, you're at a Christmas tree lot. Clearly you're not having any kind of medical emergency. Take several seats. The show is a little ham-fisted with the plot lines. One wife is feeling randy and her husband, taking meds for his depression, can't perform, and apparently... Wow, okay, without me grabbing the explicit tag on this thing, there are seriously so many other ways for partners to please each other sexually. It's not going to need to... I mean, how is this even a subplot we're exploring? And even if it is, oh wow, he's not feeling it right now? Well, there's probably a few days here and there that you're not feeling it either. Step back, woman. He's tending to his mental health and well-being. I mean, he's considered taking his own life. Just research the side effects and be supportive. Jennifer Carpenter. Whoa. That's 3 J-bombs I've dropped in this thing. I should probably start wrapping things up. Okay, well, I enjoyed the Doctor Who finale. It had some great season arc callbacks, not to mention a couple of Tom Baker Key to Time era callbacks as well, with redimensioned planets rendered in polyhedral stasis cubes. And I'm definitely tuning into the New Year's Day special. Happy 2019, everyone. I think that'll likely prove to be a wonderfully freeing change. I mean, a couple of seasons ago, when they actually had to pull in Father Christmas to shepherd them through some thoroughly untrackable Inception-level nonsense. I mean, these blobby creatures feed on your dreams, but you can kill them in your dreams, and are we all dreaming the same dream? And oh, wow, Santa Claus, thank you for dropping me at my own home. Oh, poop, I'm still dreaming, aren't I? It's a tough sell. New Year's breaks out of that overexplored Christmas-themed gulag this show has been locked into for years. They should be able to run any story, any theme, anything you wish, and I'm really looking forward to the new adventure. Closing out this segment on Disc X203, I've recorded the winter finale episode of The Good Place, titled Janet's. There's a spoiler alert in the title itself, but as we left our heroes, Team Cockroach was being pulled into Janet's void to protect them from Bad Place demons trying to pull them back into the Bad Place. Janet's void is not supposed to be housing 4 fugitive beings. The show hasn't called them souls yet, along with Ted Danson as demon architect Michael, so the situation is more than bizarre, not least of which because A, they are now technically dead again, and 2, they are all physically presenting as Janets. Darcy Carton, who plays the physical interface for all the Janets, Good Place, Bad Place, and Neutral, in this episode actually presented all of the characters, Eleanor, Chidi, Tahani, and Jason, as well as Good Janet and the neutral Janet she and Michael encounter in accounting. Michael is working on a hunch that accounting has been corrupted somehow by the Bad Place. He consults the head accountant about the dispositions of souls, and is informed that it's impossible that any corruption has happened. The system is self-correcting. All souls are evaluated per their positive and negative energy, and then dispatched accordingly. It just so happens that no souls have been dispatched to the Good Place in more than 5 centuries, so Michael is certain the system is completely Jennifer Carpentered up. Yeah, it's losing some of its punch. It was fun, though. Meanwhile, the humans have been exploring the Janet powers they've had since they're Janets now, and while doing so, Tahani and Jason discover that in one of the Season 2 reboots... Honestly, this is a very complicated show. It's well worth tracking it down and watching from the beginning. Anyway, in one of the reboots, Janet and Jason were married, and Janet still harbors feelings for him. Also, stripped for identity, Eleanor's physical presence begins to lose cohesion, and Chi must draw upon what he knows about her from this timeline to stabilize her, and at the same time comes to realize that he is, in fact, in love with her. Their kiss before the final cliffhanger is the stuff of wow. I can't even with this show. So hard in the feels. It's coming back in a couple weeks. I'm sure there are disc sets on sale. Stream the heck out of it. Just do yourself a favor, bring yourself up to speed.
What I've been watching.
so very much love for Mary Poppins Returns. Ralph and I caught that production weekend before last, and I've got to say, it was tremendous. Emily Blunt was head-to-toe magical in the title role, and Lin-Manuel Miranda took on the role of gaslighter Jack perfectly. Jane and Michael have grown and are trying to look after Michael's children, John, Annabelle, and Georgie, in the wake of their mother's death. Their mother had looked after the finances, unfortunately, and in the years since her passing, things have become hopelessly disorganized, and the bank is calling in its note on the bank's family home. Not a moment too soon, enter Mary Poppins, lighting to earth on the tail of Georgie's kite. She sweeps in and keeps the children occupied on wondrous adventures while Michael tracks down the bank shares his father held. There's so much to love in this film, which I was surprised to learn Miranda had no hand in writing. The complex wordplay and the complicated miracle or radiantly lyrical, bombastically hysterical text I was sure carried as artistically phenomenal, creative, antiphonical, and winkingly canonical inventive next. I celebrate him as a qualified, elaborate, and notable collaborator, celebrated master of both stage and screen, but to see simply tackled and articulated radically to someone else's words, text, and music surprised me. All the way down to that Royal Dalton Music Hall. They were fantastic. Just go see it. Bring some tissues. You will need it. There are parts that will just hit you in the feels. And not to take another moment with the silly not a sonnet, I will take a break and move along to this past weekend, where Ralph and I took in the Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse, another take on the multiverse referenced in X-Men and Avengers storylines, the Avengers through Doctor Strange and the Time Stone, the X-Men through some kind of rewriting that happens when Wolverine gets sent back to the 70s. I was having some trouble with the mechanism on that anyway, but the Spider-Verse posits the most expensive vision of the multiverse, in which every quantum possibility is realized in an entirely separate timeline, requiring entire new universes for each potential outcome that I've already spent more time explaining it than this movie did. Don't get me wrong, high-profile theoretical physicists have put lots of work into these theories. Just, we've got no means of proving anything one way or the other, so, well, in the home dimension for this movie, Spidey villain Kingpin is harnessing the reality of the multiverse and oh wow, what's even still a spoiler? Well, okay, nothing you can't pick up in the promos. Shamik Moore as Miles Morales is a teenager bit by a radioactive spider, just like Peter Parker from his dimension, and Peter Parker's in other dimensions, and Penny Parker, the anime spider whisperer from like the 30th century, and noir 1930s guy Nicolas Cage, and Spider-Gwen, and oh wow, this wasn't Nathan Lane, it was John Mulaney as Spider-Ham. That was fun. Not giving anything away about this movie, just go see it. It is a brilliant translation of comic book superheroism to the screen. The different animation styles are pulled in beautifully. I did think that the anime Penny Parker was tragically underutilized, but that just makes me anticipate the DVD release will contain hours of deleted scenes, so I'm definitely looking forward to that release. The Stan Lee tribute comes early. It is touching without being intrusive, and I've got to say, because yes, we are those idiots who sit through the entire credit sequence for everything, I can tell you, yeah, sit through to the end. It's completely self-contained, but it is quite a lot of fun. It really provides a nice coda to the adrenaline rush represented by pretty much the entire rest of the film. Crunching some numbers. And lastly, it's my 40th episode, so very quickly, I want to bring you up to speed in my progress here with this collection. I touched on it briefly in my VideoFuzzy the video recording posted on Facebook and YouTube, but I felt I could go into a little more detail here. As of this past week, I've cataloged through 582 discs in my classic collection. That's more than 1/5 of the way through this cataloging effort, but more significantly, I've only got 42 discs left to catalog in my current binder, the third one I'm working on, which takes me through disc 625. Once I get through that one, I'll have nearly a quarter of my classic collection discs cataloged. I have 2,570 altogether, not to mention the 205 discs I've cataloged in my direct-to-DVD recordings, which is 2,775 discs archived, 787 of which I've cataloged, representing something like 2,400 hours of media, or 100 days. As of this update, I've cataloged nearly 100 days worth of my media collection. That is well over 3 months of media. And speaking of binders, I've nearly filled up my second current collection 110 disc binder, and will be starting a third shortly. So archiving continues, cataloging continues, and as this effort continues, I will keep you posted. And with that, thank you so much for checking in my video cataloging project. Again, don't forget to track down my new VideoFuzzy, the video segment. That link will be on the Facebook page and in my show notes. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at videofuzzy.blogspot.com and past episodes on Apple Podcasts. Feedback is always appreciated. You can contact me through my blog or podcast sites or through my VideoFuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJVideoFuzzy on Twitter. For VideoFuzzy, I'm Terry J. Aman. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on VideoFuzzy.